Hi guys, Peter Finch here and welcome now to a top 3 tips video on pitching, and specifically 3 different pitching techniques that you can use, give a go and implement into your game. It's not an all-inclusive list, there are other ways of doing it, but these are the top 3 ways that most people have found to get the ball closer on those short approach shots. So without further ado, let's get into the top 3 tips. Now the first way that I want to kind of show you guys is what I would kind of class as a basic pitching technique. It involves very sound, very well tested and very well tried techniques and positions which will get the ball down to the target. Now a lot of this type of pitching technique can be really nailed down in the setup and getting your body set up correct to the target. Now I've got a 50-yard basket just down here, and what I'm going to do is talk you through the setup first of all of this technique. Now first of all, we want to be getting the club face aligned to the target. So it's picking your target line from the target back to the ball, getting that club in behind the actual shot, and then from here getting the feet and the hips slightly open to that target line. Now what this does, it presets the hips into an impact position, because over a short shot you don't have time to rotate that much. So it's presetting them into an impact position. My ball position here, I'm keeping pretty much in the middle of my stance because I don't want to hit it too low or too high. I'm going to put a little bit of weight on my front foot, and I'm going to rest my hands so they're ahead of the ball opposite my left thigh. Now this technique is a basic technique, also known as the triangle technique, because what it involves is keeping the shoulders, the arms and the hands in this triangle shape, going back and going through. Now if nothing breaks down within that actual technique, because you're set up with your weight forward and your hands slightly ahead of the ball, what will happen is your angle of attack will be descending onto the ball. You'll hit the ball first and then the turf, and as long as those wrists don't kind of flick up through impact, you'll get a very consistent actual shot. What actually using this triangle and the shoulders back and through does, it allows you to get a consistent swing length back and a consistent swing length through, and allows you to control the distance a little bit better. Now something with all these pitching techniques that you do want to do is make sure that your sternum is pretty much over the ball and it doesn't shift back or away. It stays nice and centered over the actual shot. So I've got my setup here, I've got my weight forward, my hands ahead. I'm going to use my shoulders back and through, keeping that triangle together, and get the ball down towards that eventual target. And like I said, what it does, it just makes sure that that swing arc bottoms out just after the ball. This isn't about taking a divot, it's just about getting the swing arc just after the ball and getting it down towards the target. That's a bit better. Oh, just short. But you can see there, just a little patch gone, and that's all you really need to see. So let's move on to the second type of pitching technique that you can use. So after that triangle technique, or that basic technique, the second technique is the hinge and hold. Now the hinge and hold is something that Phil Mickelson often talks about, although he does use that first technique as well. The hinge and hold technique is all about creating angle in between the wrists and the shaft and maintaining that through impact. Now this generally causes a steeper angle of attack, so more of the ball and then more of the turf afterwards. But what this does do, if you manage to actually maintain the loft on the club as well, it does create a lot of backspin control. Now the setup is very, very similar to the actual triangle technique. So it's the feet and the hips slightly on the open side, the weight forward and those hands just ahead of the ball. Now from there, it's taking the club back, but rather than maintaining this triangle and keeping everything quite firm, quite rigid, it's taking it back and actually adding in a lot of wrist hinge. So even on a short shot like this, the wrists are actually hinging up to about 90 degrees in between the shaft and the actual wrists. Then what you do from this position is actually just maintain that angle as you move through the ball. Now you can see here, with that angle as it comes down, that's a much steeper angle of attack onto the ball. So it's getting set up. Again, those feet open. My ball position here, I'm going to keep in the middle, although you can move it a bit further back with this one as well, just to ensure an even steeper angle of attack. But sternum over the ball, I'm moving my shoulders away, but I'm adding in this wrist hinge and then maintaining it as I actually come through the ball. So hinging up and holding as you come through, and you saw there, You saw there how much steeper that angle of attack was down into the ball. Now this technique is something that people often have a little bit of trouble with because it really does involve striking down on the ball, and a lot of people are scared of that, especially with short shots. But as long as that wrist angle is maintained, it really does create that much lower angle of attack, and you could hear the actual strike there was much, almost crisper than the first technique. Now the last technique I want you guys to have a go at is known as the linear pitching technique. Now the linear pitching technique, it really takes the emphasis away from having lots of wrist hinge. It takes the emphasis of having the weight on the front foot and actually creating that steeper angle of attack. And it's all about getting the club actually bottoming out at the ball a little bit more and actually using the bounce on the bottom of the club. So rather than actually getting the weight forward, it's all about keeping the weight even. You can straighten up your stance here if you want, so make it more parallel to your target line. I still find it slightly easier if the feet are a little bit open still. So the feet in the hitch just slightly open from my perspective, but you can keep them square if you want to. Now rather than leaning the shaft a long way forward, it's about getting the shaft pointing much straighter up, so towards the belly, towards the sternum. Keeping the sternum over the ball, yes, but this is all about taking it back, not having much wrist hinge, returning it into impact, and again getting the shaft quite straight up, quite vertical when you actually hit the shot, and then maintaining it through. It's almost skimming the club underneath the ball rather than striking the ball first in the turf. Now a lot of people, what you find is this helps take a lot of the fear factor out of that steep angle of attack. It's more of a sweep away, and it gives people a different option when they're actually hitting shots. So it's making that shaft angle more upright, it's using the shoulders back and through. But you can see, as in comparison to the hinge and hold technique, the actual launch with this 56 degree wedge here was massively high. And there's absolutely no divot really at the ball because it's that skim through. If this is off a really tight lie, there would be a nice little clip divot through impact, but this is a little bit sat up here. So it's that setup, that shaft angle straight up at the body, back and through, more of a skim through, and you can see just the extra height that is actually created through that shot. So those are the top 3 pitching techniques that you can give a go, take away, and let me know how you get on. Like I said, there's no 100% correct way of actual pitching. My personal favorite is the first one, the triangle technique, because it's very, very simple. The hinge and hold will certainly get that steeper angle of attack, but the linear technique really adds something different and allows you to use the club in a different way. Each one won't be for everyone. Each one will be different, and each one will give you different benefits and rewards. Give them all a go and let me know how you get on. As always, comment in the box below, subscribe to the channel if you haven't already, and follow me on my other social media platforms. Let me know how you get on, and we'll see you down here next time.